up, you guys? Welcome to a brand new episode of the Fit Women's Weekly podcast. I'm going to do a quick intro so that we can hop right into this episode because I'm joined by a very special guest, Katina from Katina Eats Kilos. If you're watching this on YouTube, you're probably on YouTube quite often, so maybe you've seen her. Katina is a professional eater who goes around and does food challenges at different restaurants, not just in the United States, but she travels the world, going to some amazing places and spending a lot of time focused in on their local cuisine and digging into the challenges that they throw her way. But you might be wondering, Kendall, why do you have a competitive eater on your channel for a podcast episode when you normally talk about health and food and nutrition? And that's a valid question. And that's because she also has an interest in taking care of herself and has a really great understanding of nutrition so that she can learn how to balance these insane challenges with also maintaining a healthy body weight, maintaining a healthy body composition, making herself feel the best in order to stay healthy. So we're going to talk about these challenges. We're going to talk about what her goals are. We're going to talk about her fitness. She came into this field because she was in the bodybuilding space. So how does she manage it all? What does training for something like this look like versus when she was training for the fitness space? We're going to dig into it. So make sure that you guys stay around, check it out. Make sure to like this video and make sure to subscribe because I put out new videos every single week. All right. Let's dive in. What's up, you guys? Welcome to a brand new episode of the Fit Women's Weekly podcast. As you heard in my introduction, I am joined today by a very special guest, somebody I've been wanting to talk to for quite a while. I would not say the normal type that I would have on here where I'm talking about hormone health or different diet fads and debunking them, but I am so excited for this. And I have Katina Eats Kilos. That is such a mouthful for me. But Katina, what's up? Welcome to the show.
Hey, thank you for having me on, Kendall. I appreciate it.
Yeah. So how's the day going? Busy?
It's been a good one so far. Yeah, we have some family in town, so we're going to be doing a brewery tour in a little bit here. So been kind of dieting all day, getting ready for that.
That's so funny. So for those of you guys that don't know, Katina is a food challenge eater. Is that the right way? What's the exact terminology?
Yeah, I just say professional eater. Yeah. So basically my job, which is pretty cool, is to go around the world trying restaurant challenges or food challenges, which basically means like a restaurant will offer like a large portion of food that has to be finished in a certain amount of time in order for the person completing it to earn some sort of prize usually, or sometimes it's just the glory.
Now, how exactly did you get into this? Because you were military beforehand, right? Military and into like bodybuilding, which is very different.
Yeah. So while I was dieting for a bodybuilding show back in 2019, I was watching YouTube videos of people eating just so that I could kind of feel full. And while I was doing that, I kind of the whole time was like, I feel like I can do that. Like that seems like something I can do. I've always had a really big appetite, can always eat a large portion. And so after the bodybuilding show, I needed to put on a little bit of weight. And I mean, as everyone does after a bodybuilding show. And I was like, well, why not? Why don't I go try a food challenge? And so I bought a cheap camcorder and took it along with me to my first ever food challenge at a place called Fat Burger and did the triple XL King Burger challenge. And I was still hungry for dessert afterwards. So I continued taking my camera along with me and trying bigger and bigger food challenges and uploading them to YouTube. And then the videos kind of just took off and I was really enjoying myself. And now we're here.
Now, during your bodybuilding phase, because I've done figure competitions in the past too, when I first started my fitness journey 20 years ago. And I mean, that is quite a restrictive program that you have to be on. So someone with such a big appetite, was that a real struggle for you back then?
Not so much because I was really focused on what I was doing and because I was eating like massive salads and stuff to keep myself full for the lower calories. So I probably had more like GI distension or stomach distension than the average person. But yeah, it wasn't like a huge deal. I was definitely hungry and uncomfortable all the time, but nothing insane. Obviously, I got to the point where I needed to watch videos about food, but it was still manageable. Yeah.
So you're more into like density of food versus like
Yes,
calories of food, getting
definitely
that
volume.
high fiber in.
Yes, absolutely. So I was doing like large salads. So like those giant stainless steel mixing bowls, I would fill it with like an entire bag of salad and then maybe add like a can of chicken or like chopped up grilled chicken or tuna or some sort of meat, and then use like mustard as dressing and maybe some other veggies just to kind of fill it out. And then if I was lucky and got carbs, I would maybe add some carbs to that. But usually I didn't really get that many carbs throughout the day. At the very end of prep, I think the only carbs I was eating was a half a can of pumpkin a day, other than the kind of carbs from vegetables. So like, yeah, it was, I mean, I actually kind of enjoyed the pumpkin thing because I kind of thought it tasted like sweet potatoes if you added Splenda and cinnamon and a little bit of salt. But,
I actually do that with a little
yeah,
bit of maple syrup. Oh, it's so good.
yeah, it's amazing. So yeah, it's like diet people sweet potatoes sort of.
Exactly. From the health perspective, for me, I used to do the same thing, like eat these huge salads. They weren't calorically restrictive like what you're having to do, but years ago, I was like, oh, the more vegetables, the better. But then I also started to have issues like gas and bloat. And there is an issue with, sometimes too many vegetables is a bad thing. So did you ever experience those issues?
Yeah, I've done that kind of in the past, not necessarily leading up to the show, but kind of afterwards, because I was trying to not gain weight extremely rapidly while I was doing the food challenges. So I would still kind of continue to eat like these like singular large meals in the day. And it was kind of starting to cause that. So now, over trial and error, I've kind of learned how to eat now to kind of avoid that. And that kind of actually is, I avoid cruciferous vegetables as much as possible and just use like leafy greens. And then I choose like lower fiber carbohydrate sources, just because that kind of limits GI issues. And I do kind of intense spin biking as well as the lifting, so that just kind of helps everything digest really well. And it's actually kept me more regular. I'm sure you talk about that on this podcast a little bit, more regular than actually eating more fiber. So yeah, it's helpful.
Yeah, I'm sure. What was your very first challenge? Was a burger, you said?
Yes, not that big of one, maybe only like a kilo or like a pound, 2 pounds roughly, so not massive. But yeah, I think it was like you had like 20 minutes to eat it, and I was trying to beat, I believe Jay Leno had done the challenge at some point in like under 5 minutes, and I was trying to beat Jay Leno. I don't think I did, because I was so excited to be eating a cheeseburger. But yeah, that was a good start for me.
Well, once you kind of realize like, wow, this is something fun, this is something that I enjoy doing, is there actual training when it comes to like, because people are always like, how can you put so much food into such a small petite body? Is there actual training that you do to prepare yourself for these big challenges?
Initially, yeah. So like before the start of a big tour, or when I was first getting started, I would make those big salads I told you about even bigger. And so I'd push kind of the limit of those to roughly right around 5 pounds for the salad itself, including like meat. And sometimes I would add like rice and stuff. So like almost kind of like think of it as a major Chipotle bowl or something, like tons of rice or maybe like some beans or something, just so that it was a big lower calorie meal for right around 5-ish pounds. And then I would top that off with like a 2 liter of like a diet soda, just to have the liquid volume, and then also have like the gas and carbon kind of dioxide volume, just expanding my stomach even more. So that was kind of one of my training techniques that I would use, maybe like a few days before a food challenge or something. And then once you do a food challenge, as long as you're doing 1 to 2 a week, you really don't have to train anymore, as long as they're right around that ballpark. So unless you're going for something way above that realm, then maybe you'd have to train a little bit. So that kind of helps.
Yeah, I'm sure. And I'm going to guess, I know that you and Randy, your partner, weren't dating when you first started, but he's a very large guy. And so I'm going to go out on a limb here and correct me if I'm wrong, but I know like when I was dating anybody in the past, including my husband, when you're first like going out to meals, you kind of try to like keep up with that person without knowing. So to just kind of dating and hanging out more with him also help you?
I would say it did, just because we had to do more food challenges once we met up. So when we initially met in Alaska, it was to do mostly just like one food challenge was the main purpose. But then we kind of ended up doing like, I think 5 challenges in total together, which was at a more aggressive pace than I'd ever done before. So normally I would do 1, maybe 2 challenges per week. During the Alaska trip, we did 5 within like 7 days or something like that. So it was very, very intense and a high pace. So yeah, that did definitely help me get better. And then we continued to kind of tour together later on, in which I had to eat back to back to back. So that definitely helped improve my capacity quite a lot, but also kind of led to me regaining weight back that I kind of never had wanted to do again. So I started kind of gaining weight beyond just the healthy post-show rebound weight and beyond that. So there kind of had to be a fine balance between that. And I kind of learned that for him, because he's a big guy, he can do that many challenges in a week and it's not a huge deal. But for me, more than 2 challenges a week pretty much leads to guaranteed weight gain, because that's no matter how you slice it, unless I basically fast completely, that's going to put me over roughly, I've kind of discovered my maintenance calories to be about 19 to 20,000 per week. And if 2 challenges are easily around 14 to 15,000 calories, depending on the context of the meal.
Mm-hmm. So then I would love to break that down a little bit. So let's say you're doing 2 challenges a week. What does your week look like in terms of like prep, challenge day of challenge? These are the things, like I watch your videos every Sunday, by the way, and you guys should absolutely tune in. Yeah. But I'm going like, how does she feel after this is done? What does the next day look like? Do you fast the entire day to make up, because you are so in tune with your body in terms of fitness and health as well?
Right. So because mostly now, kind of when we're doing challenges, we're going to do it almost like in a tour sense. So while traveling or on the road, and so fitness and nutrition looks a little bit different than what would ideally happen at home. So typically, I was trying to limit myself to 1 to, like, on average, it ended up working out to like 1.5 challenges per week throughout the course of a very long tour that we just did. And so how that would kind of look is that I never really had to train for those challenges because I was still kind of trained from the last one. So that wasn't really a big deal. And then just making sure that, kind of understanding that usually, especially what we've done lately, is that calorie levels have been quite a lot higher because a lot of these restaurants know who we are, so they'll make them a little bit bigger, or some restaurants will design challenges for us, which makes them a little bit bigger. So they've been roughly around 8,000 calories plus sometimes per meal. So
which is for most people
basically
4 days worth of food.
Yes, mostly. So to balance that, I was eating, one meal was basically breakfast, like a big breakfast. I'm a breakfast person. I have to eat like right in the morning. Big breakfast. If our hotel had a gym or something, get in a weight training workout. Most of the time we were in an Airbnb though, so maybe some body weight workouts. And the rest of the time we were aiming for over 20,000 steps a day because we wanted to explore the cities that we were in. So that was definitely helping to combat the calories a lot. And then just kind of making sure that our dinners were reasonable at the end of the day if we weren't doing a challenge. So that we definitely had our times though. I mean, we're in Europe and stuff. We were going to eat like flatbreads and whatever was unique to the area. And then we splurged in some beers, which was not ideal, but yeah. So then, like, the day of a challenge, I still, as surprising as this sounds, as long as the challenge was after about 3 p.m., I would still eat breakfast. And sometimes even a little bit of a snack. If I get too hangry leading up to a challenge, it like kind of hurts me. I get so upset, like my stomach's like, meh, like kind of, I don't know, upset-ish. I don't know. And then I have to interact with people and I get really hangry.
My husband does that too. And sometimes it'll upset his stomach, where then like he's so hungry, it upsets his stomach and then he has a hard time eating. I'm like,
and that
is so strange to me. But yeah, it happens.
Yeah, through trial and error, I learned that was not for me. But way back when I first was starting the food challenges, I was able to completely fast the day following a challenge, and I can't even do that anymore. So I'll usually sit at probably day after a challenge, probably about 1,000 calories a day, maybe a little bit more. But it still ends up working out mathematic wise to where throughout the trip, I think I gained about 0.5 pound a week if you were to do the math, which isn't a ton for what we were doing. So I think that all the walking we were doing and just like the little bit of extra activity through body weight workouts and weight training kind of was also helping a little bit as well.
Do you feel like you did lose some of your muscle mass though, since you weren't lifting weights as much as you like?
I did. But the cool thing about that is that now that we're home, I do get those newbie gains just because it was something that I'd lost. I'd become detrained, and then I was able to kind of have that kind of novel thing of having newbie gains just from having all the time off. So I regained that muscle mass back at probably a disproportionate rate to what the average person would be able to do. But I also kind of started this. Yes, I was dieting at a very more modest rate when we very first got back. So I would say the first month and a half was like I really didn't lose weight at all, but my body composition changed drastically. I had that full body recomposition thing, which isn't magic by any means, and it's not normal for most people unless you are brand new, obviously, or a very detrained athlete. So I was lucky enough to be able to experience that when I got home and have my body physique change, but not the scale weight. So that's kind of where you have to not let your mind play tricks on you. Things are happening. Just because the scale's not moving doesn't mean you're not changing. But moving on from there, yeah, I've definitely, I'm not, probably not to the level I was at before, but I would say I'm just shy of probably my prime muscle mass. I don't know.
When do you guys go on another tour?
Not until next year. And we're not really sure where our first tour is going to be. Probably early next year, we're going to start kind of locally around the area and just do little road trips along the weekends. Randy's currently going for his master's degree as in nutrition. So he's going to be a registered dietitian actually coming up here in about a week or so.
Okay.
And
do people
and
raise their eyebrows and go, really? When
yeah, I mean,
yeah.
you'd be surprised actually how many people in the professional eating community are really passionate about nutrition and understand nutrition really well. So it's actually not super surprising once you're into it, but from the outside looking in, it's very surprising. A lot of people are like, that doesn't make any sense because you're obviously not practicing what you preach when you're doing that. But when you have a good understanding of nutrition, it's pretty easy to combat the sins of a food challenge over time.
I was about to say, it actually makes perfect sense when you think about it, because just you talking about yourself going like, oh, these challenges are about 8,000 and I take my calories. Like, it sounds like you're very into knowing what you put into your body. And I'm sure, okay, if I eat this, this is what's going to make me feel better the next day.
Correct. Yeah. So it's kind of like a balance, and with anything, even if you're just a normal athlete, getting good sleep is super important to recover. Hydrating enough is huge because the sodium levels in those challenges are insane. So even as full as you are after a challenge, just forcing water in will help really release that sodium, which is going to make you feel better so much faster than if you just don't drink any water at all, which is kind of another thing that just was learned over time, is like you really got to force that water and get rid of that sodium, because yeah, you'll be swollen like a tick for a few days if you don't just keep pushing water. I mean, I've woken up with my fingers looking like balloons and my neck is like out to here, and it's just like, ooh, that's not a cute look for me.
Dang. Have you ever, when you're like getting to that point, because we've seen you dominate a ton of challenges, and then there have been challenges where you're like, I'm done, I'm going to stop here. Have you ever actually gotten to that point of being sick in a challenge?
Yes, I have. And usually it's if I stop the challenge, and I think I've had a few videos. It's not a huge number, but there's been a few where I've had to like stop and like run off the camera, or like I'll just be like, no, I'm done. And then maybe I end like filming and then I do have to run off camera because I've just pushed myself that hard. I try not to though. I'm not willing to get ill in front of especially a crowd, because it's meant to be for fun. I don't ever intend to push myself that far, but sometimes I'm really competitive and I'm like, I'm not going to quit. I'm not going to quit. I can do this without getting sick. And then I go beyond what my actual physical capability is, and it just happens. But obviously that's never intended, because number one, it's pretty embarrassing because everyone knows what you're doing when you go running away that fast,
right?
And number two, I mean, it's wasteful. So the whole idea with doing this was to put on weight after a show. So I mean, you gotta balance that out and understand that when you are taking in these calories, it was for a reason initially, and that was to put on muscle mass. And so when I go back out to doing this tour, hopefully I'm going to have access to a gym more so, and then I will be able to put some of these calories to good use, even though maybe the macros aren't perfect. Hopefully we can nutrient partition just a little bit better. But yeah, that's
I would love to see a series on that, because obviously I know that you do your travel series, and then when you are in like a cut, you share that with everybody as well, which I think is really cool. Yes. What would be really interesting is if you do a body program while you're doing your challenges, to show how much like more, not necessarily like how your body and your weight fluctuates, more of like how much muscle can you put onto your body when you have access to a weight training program and you're putting on these excess calories.
Yeah, I think that would be pretty fascinating. I mean, obviously, I think it would be I feel like it would be kind of like the dudes, the bros get when they dirty bulk. I feel like it would be similar to that, where
Mhm.
I would probably get more fluffy than necessary, but I do think that I would make decent progress muscle strength wise. That's kind of my hypothesis.
No, I would
We
agree.
would have to
Yeah.
kind of see that in action, because I never actually had the luxury of being able to train consistently while traveling. But I
Mhm.
think I would like to start investing in that a bit more, especially as we might be repeating a couple of countries coming up. And so since I've seen them already, I'm losing 2 hours of exploration to the gym isn't going to be as huge of a deal.
Mhm.
So I think that could be a player moving forward.
Yeah. And then when you come back off of tour and go into like your mini cuts, what's that result look
Correct.
like? Yeah,
Yeah,
that
and
would
I
be
would really
interesting.
like to make those more like solid numbers as well. I might even do like a DEXA scan or something
Mhm.
beforehand, and a
Exactly.
DEXA scan when I return, and
Yeah.
then see kind of what those numbers look like, and
Mhm.
actually have concrete evidence. Because look wise, sometimes you can gain fat and it can actually make you look a little more jacked if you're lucky enough to
Right.
have that sort of I guess fat deposit
Mhm.
genetics. So we'll see. I kind of am a little bit lucky. Everyone's like, oh, you haven't gained a pound on that tour. And it's like, no, I just happen to gain it in places that aren't on camera. So
Right. Like
that's
you
kind of
always say you
my
carry your weight
genetics.
below your waist.
Yeah, below the
So
waist. Oh yeah, real
yeah.
bad, real bad. So even when I was stage lean, I still had cellulite and big thighs, and I wasn't perfectly stage lean, even though like I looked emaciated from the waist up. Like the waist down was still kind of a hot mess on stage. So yeah, that's just my genetics, unfortunately. But and also fortunately, because on camera I look okay-ish, I guess. I don't
Right.
know.
Yeah, you look great. You look great on camera.
Oh,
And as far as
thank you.
cellulite, it doesn't matter for most of us.
Mm,
I've weighed 100 pounds before and I'm almost 5'6", and I still had cellulite. That's just
yeah, it's
unfortunately the
frustrating.
cards that women are dealt.
Yes, absolutely. That was me. I was like, well, this is unfortunate. I weigh, like you said, 100 pounds, and there it still is. Oh,
Yep,
oh well.
exactly. Now, I am curious because you've like some of them are very generic kind of meals. Like you said, like here's a hamburger challenge, here's a pizza challenge. Have you had any meals that came back later to bite you in the butt from food poisoning?
Yes, one of my
Oh,
first ones actually was from a restaurant kind of near Seattle. I guess I won't like call them out. Not
you
that
don't have to
well,
do
I
that.
mean, it was years
Yeah.
ago. It doesn't actually matter. I mean, it wasn't probably their fault. But I got food poisoning from like the blue cheese on a blue cheeseburger.
Mhm.
And it was bad. It was bad. And I couldn't eat blue cheese for like a year and a half afterwards. But yeah, I was super ill. And the next day I was filming a giant pho challenge, and I ended up losing the challenge because I still felt so bad. But I didn't want to like not film, because I was actually collaborating with people for my first time ever. I got to collaborate with people.
Oh,
It was
wow.
Joel Hansen, and then a gentleman from Australia had come over, and then another guy from Canada named Scott Watkins, which I guess is like Scott Eats now. He changes his username a lot, but I think it's Scott Eats. But yeah, so I was meeting up with them, and everyone won except for me. The girl obviously lost, and that was just like it was upsetting. I think that might have been my either first or second loss ever. So I was really bummed about that one.
Uh-huh. Wow. Every time I see you do a seafood, I love seafood. Charleston, South Carolina. That's what we're known for.
Yeah,
But still the
you guys are
idea of
known for the
doing
good stuff.
yeah, but when I see you doing a seafood challenge, it always makes me a little nervous for you. I'm like, oh, good luck.
Yeah, I don't think I've gotten anything funky from seafood. But I usually just rage really bad at seafood challenges because I hate peeling.
Uh-huh.
So like seafood boil challenges always really frustrate me. I'm terrible. I'm terrible at peeling seafood and the patience level for cracking and stuff. So yeah, usually that just leads to rage, no sort of sickness. Mental
Have you,
sickness only.
have you ever had a meal that you took your first bite in and you're very respectful to the restaurants and to the meals, but where you bit into it and you're like, shit, I have to eat this for the next 45 minutes?
Yeah, it wasn't necessarily all, it's not always all the dish. Sometimes it's like sides or something.
Mhm.
And sometimes it's just my preference. It's just something I'm not really into. But I have lost, I would say I've lost maybe 3 challenges, not because I was overly full, but because I didn't enjoy the taste at all.
Mhm.
That doesn't happen too often though, luckily. There's a video coming up on my channel that you'll get to see me very openly dislike the food, and I'm
Oh, wow.
blabbing, so a lot of people don't like it either. So you'll see that, and that's not a very often thing. 'Cause normally I try and be as polite as possible, but it was just not my cup of tea, and I couldn't really hide it. It was all over my face, and I didn't like it. So yeah,
I love it.
that
I'll have
doesn't
to see
happen
that.
often. Yeah, I
And
think that
then,
should be coming up in a month or so, maybe.
okay. And then red onions, right? Raw red onions.
Raw red onions, and it's very specific. It's like only when they're thick and on a burger or something. Like if they're diced finely, I'm cool with it in like a chicken salad or something. But when they're like the big rings on a burger, why you're ruining the burger?
Is there
It's
anything
tricky.
that you had to eat so much of that you're like, I never want to touch this kind of food again?
No, I don't think so. There's times where it's like I don't want it for a really long time.
Mm-hmm.
I'm trying to think of a good example because usually everything's still kind of set. Like pizza, I could eat every day. It seems like I'll do a
You
pizza
don't get
challenge the
too
next
jaw
day and be
fatigued
like,
from that?
a jaw fatigue, yes, but that's usually only when it cools down or if it's
Okay.
like the style that has a chewier crust. But as far as flavor fatigue on pizza, that's a rough one. Not really. I'd be like, I could go for another slice of pizza. Shouldn't, but I want one.
Yeah, I'm
But
not
I
much
do
of a
get sick of
pizza
burger
person.
challenges.
Oh,
I get
really?
sick
I
of
was
burger
actually getting ready to
challenges.
say I'll take
Yeah.
a burger over pizza any day.
Yeah. Burgers are a lot easier to ruin than a pizza because if you overcook a burger, they're dry,
Mm-hmm.
or the bun gets too soggy, or there's too much sauce or not enough sauce. It's kind of hard to get the perfect burger. And then if on the ones that are like supersized, or instead of stacking them or something, they try and make a 5-pound patty. Those are almost always impossible to get perfect. So the outsides can be cooked perfectly and the middle can be raw.
Mm-hmm.
And
Didn't
if
you do a
the
pancake like that too? Didn't you have a
yes, I
pancake challenge
have.
where it was like raw on the inside and you're like, y'all are
Yes,
gonna have to cook this?
yeah, that they were so nice and recooked that for me, but I felt so bad because I didn't want that to be on video because that wasn't their fault. That was their first
Right.
time making
Oh,
this
wow.
challenge. That some pancake places have done it time and time again, so they're used to it. And this place, this was their first time, and these pancakes were like seat cushion size. So I mean,
Yeah.
it's no wonder they didn't know how to cook that. So it was impressive that it came out looking okay in general. So
Yeah.
yeah, not their fault, but that was not pleasant. Just biting into raw dough
Oh,
or
so
batter.
out of all the challenges that you've done, what has been your favorite?
That's always a really, really tough one. I
Let's try,
actually,
I'll narrow it down. When it comes to savory meals, not breakfast, not dessert, what has been your favorite?
ooh, okay. So that one I always go back to. There's a place in Florida on Anna Maria Island called the Ugly Grouper,
Mm-hmm.
and they did this amazing food challenge that was this variety of foods that was absolutely incredible. There was like a Polynesian boat with like blackened grouper in it, and so it was like inside of a carved out pineapple and with like a rice pilaf type thing in there, and then all the blackened grouper, and then there was like a 2-pound cheesy blackened shrimp taco that had like a cheese skirt coming out of it, fried green tomatoes, cheese logs. It came with a slice of turtle cheesecake, and then I think a cocktail. And it was just magical. They were like serenading us with live music. It was in front of this hideous, ugly grouper statue that's like a historical landmark on Anna Maria Island. It was like the coolest vibe, best food ever. Like the only downside was that it was Florida, so it was like 95 degrees plus humidity while trying to eat a lot of food is not fun. And then
I'm sure.
obviously you're like, oh, we want to go to the beach after, and you're just walking around looking like you're 6 months pregnant after that. But otherwise, yeah, best meal that I can think of in a long time.
And then what about a dessert?
Desserts. Oh, we did Randy and I did a couples challenge. We did a Valentine's Day cheesecake challenge.
I
That was
remember
probably
that.
one of my favorite dessert challenges. That was just divine.
I don't know, the kitchen
um,
sink ice cream that you did before looked quite amazing too.
That one was great as well. The only downside of that is that because there was so much ice cream surrounding all the cookies and brownies that they added, it froze the cookies and brownies almost instantly just because of the
Oh, wow.
quantity of ice cream in there. And so it turned them basically into like rocks. So as delicious as they were, it was like chewing on stone. So it kind of made it rough to enjoy that part. But the flavors of ice cream were exquisite. I think that's at Sloan's Ice Cream Shop, I believe is the name for that kitchen sink challenge. So good.
And then I know that you said breakfast is your like favorite meal. So do you have a favorite
Ultimate meal.
breakfast that you've done?
Favorite breakfast, any Irish breakfast. Any Irish breakfast or Scottish breakfast, full English. Uh, American breakfast just don't hold a candle to the breakfasts of the UK. They're just elevated. The UK and Ireland are just so good.
And what is it
It's
like
beautiful.
on a traditional Irish or British breakfast? What is it? What makes it so special?
Their bacon is different. So, America, we've kind of got that crispy, very thin bacon. I'm not a big American bacon person at all. I love good, just like English bacon or Irish bacon. It's more floppy, more like ham.
I was gonna say it's like
Um,
salty or ham, right?
it's like very like, yeah, like salty ham, and it's got like some flop to it. It's still very fatty, obviously, but I feel like it just has more flavor. To me, American bacon is like chewing on cardboard. I'm not a big fan unless it's like maple candied bacon or something.
Yeah.
But they have that. That's number one. Their breakfast sausages are just next level, out of bounds, because I don't really care for American sausages that much. Like, I'll eat them. They're good, but
Mhm.
just this is England and this is American. And then of course you have, for Ireland, you have black pudding, white pudding. Scotland has haggis.
Mhm.
I mean, it blows your mind. They're disgusting when you name what's in them, but it's the most wonderful thing you've ever tasted.
I love good breakfast sausage for sure.
And their toast and bread, they know how to bake there. They take time to bake, and they don't just buy Wonder Bread. They actually like bake it themselves in house usually, and it's not Wonder Bread from the supermarket. It's really good bread too. There's a lot of pride in it.
I love it's really refreshing to see somebody who you can tell that you are not only doing this just because it is your job, but you're like, I lights up when you talk about food. And that's very
Yeah.
refreshing to hear, especially from a woman, because we're, for so many years and decades, we've tried to eat as little food as possible. And so to hear this passion and eating these large quantities, it's very refreshing and fun to hear something different.
Yeah, I've always been a big eater. I absolutely love food, and so I think it's trying to kind of teach people to channel. If you have a big appetite, don't fight it, and don't just kind of succumb to it and be like kind of play victim to it. Like, own up to the fact that you really like food, eat a lot, and then balance that by doing a lot. So
Mhm.
if you can eat that much, just move a little bit more. I mean, and if you have a desk job, I understand that's hard, but go for a walk in the morning, go for a walk after work, play with your dog if you have one. Go to the gym or do yoga or whatever. Just move a little bit more. Use that energy for good, since you have that big appetite. And the least that's going to happen is you're going to have a little bit better cardiac health and maybe a little bit better nutrient partitioning, and you're going to feel good. Probably sleep a little better too.
Now, with this passion for like going out and doing these food challenges, do you and Randy also have a passion for cooking your own food?
That is the funny part, is neither of us like to cook
Really?
at all. Like, I microwave my eggs in the morning. I just don't like to cook.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. I've never been into it. What's odd though is I enjoy watching like baking shows, and I don't like to bake. I don't, I've never been that passionate about it. I'm a decent cook,
Mhm.
not by following recipes. Usually I just eyeball stuff and it turns out okay. But yeah, I think that meal prepping so much I mean, I started meal prepping probably when I was 22 and did it for 10 years almost now. And you get burnout on cooking and meal prepping, and it kind of takes the passion out of it when you're weighing and measuring everything. So maybe that kind of burned me.
Mhm.
Um, so yeah,
And
just never
also
got
for a
into it.
lot of people, if you are measuring food all the time, it's very hard to do that when you're trying to make a complex recipe, right? It's so much easier
Very
to
true.
measure your food when it's just like, I'm doing a cup of sweet potato and 5 ounces of chicken breast versus trying to make a lasagna meal and figure everything that's on there.
Yes, and I do kind of still have a slightly uh not good mindset around, like, when I do make a meal, I know what the ingredients are and if they're going to have a lot of calories or not. So it's a little harder when I'm watching myself put those ingredients into something to be like, I'm about to eat this, like
Mhm.
adding full fat cheese or full fat dairy or something like that to a meal. And instead of just, when you go out, you're having a good time, just accept
Mhm.
the fact that your cheeseburger has cheese and mayonnaise all over it. Like,
Sure.
it's easier to accept it when it's just handed to you as opposed to when you're making it. So a lot of the time times my recipes are going to be like lower calorie recipes, or I still use miracle noodles and mix them in with normal noodles to give me a little bit more volume, or use them in lieu of noodles to give me just a good quick snack for low calories, stuff like that. So I usually make like lower fat, lower calorie meals if I'm going to cook something. So yeah, I have a little bit of a morphed mindset around that still. But that's probably something I need to get over and address eventually. But right now I'm still dieting, so I can't really address it.
Well, actually, that's what I like. That's a very interesting thing that you bring up. It almost sounds like your food challenges is a sort of therapy to help you balance that out, where you're not thinking so much about food when somebody else prepares it for you.
Yeah, I would say so. And I mean, I'm aware of the fact that if I have one food challenge meal a week, it's not going to derail everything, especially if you get right back on the train and start eating healthy again. And it's the same when you go to dine out with friends or family. You go right back on the train and you're going to be fine. But yeah, I guess food challenges was more for me, like it was a good competitive way to gain weight on purpose. That's kind of how it started. And then it just kind of became fun. And then I'm really competitive. And it's just once it becomes like your job and you get to meet people and stuff like that, it kind of just becomes brainless. You do it because you not only want to, but you kind of have to in a way, because you know that you want to make really good entertainment.
And you used to also do like a day, like a cheat day, long time ago, like short hair Katina.
Yes.
And were
I
those your
miss
cheat days
those a
during training
lot.
time?
Yes, I was still able to bodybuild during that because I was still at home. So that was kind of a little bit more beneficial, because even during those cheat days, like I would usually train right after the breakfast meal, which was sometimes hard because a lot of the times I was doing like crazy amounts of donuts for breakfast. So it was kind of hard to train sometimes after, but usually I would try and lift at least. And then I was trying to get over 20,000 steps a day if I was filming a cheat day. So like between the meals, I was walking like crazy or just trying to move to digest the food as much as possible. But I would like to get back into filming those. The problem is that now the TikTok generation, there's a lot of like fake cheat days and fake full days of eating. And so the belief level in the cheat day calorie challenges is really low. Whereas you can't deny a food challenge when there's 50 people watching you and there's witnesses and stuff, but it's a cheat day. It's just me. You don't know. I could be lying. You never know. And that's kind of what people see it as. So it's been kind of hard to want to film those, as opposed to just doing food challenge content where it's like, yeah, this is legit.
Sure. And most people are so really positive and are so like kind and stuff to you and in your comments. You have an awesome following for sure. But then there are the people, of course, that are like, this is disordered eating. And do you have any thoughts on that, or kind of what's your personal take?
To me, I think what they're saying is fair, because if you read the textbook definition of binge eating, it's eating in large volumes and then balancing it with periods of not eating, or that's the textbook definition. So I agree with that, but I think I can fight that. My argument is usually that I'm aware that I'm doing it, and I'm not doing it from like a place of like a mental issue or anything like that. Not that we don't all have a little bit of a mental issue going on, but I understand that I'm doing it for fun, for entertainment, and that I'm not punishing myself by eating less the next day. It's just because I want to stay healthy. It's not like a punishment. I just want to live a good, healthy, fulfilling life. So I like to be able to move. I like to go outside, and I like to be able to lift. So if I eat a ton for a food challenge the next day, I don't want to go out and also eat in excess for no reason at all. I want to, after that food challenge, eat a little bit less and be uncomfortable the next day, because the day before I got to eat in plenty. So that's kind of one of the arguments that happens a lot. And then there's a lot of there's people starving in the world comments, which is very fair and valid. But if it was possible to box up leftovers, I think everyone would be doing it and sending it to the people who need it, but it's not possible. And so my eating schedule is a little bit different than most people. So like, just because I eat one big meal a day instead of 3 square meals a day doesn't mean that I'm wasting anything, if that makes sense. So my calories still balance out just the same.
Yeah, absolutely. And I talk to my nutrition clients actually about that all the time, because again, we were raised with this idea of clean your plate, right? Like, don't leave any food. There's starving kids. And again, if you could ship that food over to somebody, that would be fantastic. But at the end of the day, you can't. So if you're full, you're full. Don't stuff it down just to stuff it down.
And I mean, not to bring this up, but I mean, Randy and I have traveled to very, very poor countries, and if they're full, they leave their food too, and that's just the way it is. Cambodia was like that. Vietnam, Thailand we went to some poor areas, and they still, if they're full, they don't finish their food either. So I mean, it's unfortunately that it exists out there, but yeah, we're not the only ones doing it. And I think it's okay to stop eating instead of pushing yourself to the max and getting toward the point where you feel sick, because I think that's more disrespectful to the food than just setting it aside.
Yeah, if you're no longer enjoying it, absolutely.
Just quit.
Yeah. So you have been to some crazy places along the way. Where has been your favorite place food wise, but also for culture?
My favorite place for culture and food has been actually South Korea, Seoul, South Korea. I expected it to be Tokyo, Japan. Going into the Asia part of our trip, I was so jazzed for Tokyo, Japan. I'd started learning Japanese, was getting really good at it, knew the hiragana, katakana alphabets, and was starting to speak it just a little bit. But got to Seoul, South Korea, what fell in love. To me, every part of that city seemed like a amusement park, and all the food was exquisite. It's such a playful cuisine. They're not afraid to add ketchup to stuff, or like, add cheese to something that shouldn't have cheese in
They
it.
don't make fun of you going, oh, how dare you cover this with
No,
one
they
sauce.
want you to. They put it's just so good. I can't even explain how good it is. And they have this cool street food culture, and everyone's very friendly, and everyone's super fashionable, and you walk around, everyone looks like a K-pop star, and it was just the coolest vibe. I loved it. I would go back to Seoul, South Korea in a heartbeat, and I would love to get to like Osan or something like that as well. I mean, I would love to go see all of that. It would be great.
I won't ask your least favorite culturally, but least favorite food and cuisine wise. Do you have one?
I'm trying to think. Least favorite food wise. I think they've all been pretty good. Maybe some just less exciting than others. I would say I wasn't, this is really going to rub people the wrong way. I wasn't as impressed with Italian food as I thought it would be. It was their sandwich game is on point though. Italian sandwiches are on point. Gelato game is on point, and most pizzas. But if you venture out of that realm, it wasn't quite as exciting. Like we went to Naples, Italy, and Randy and I had at a poke shop because we couldn't find any good food in Naples, which was really surprising because that's the home of Neapolitan pizza, you think, and all that. But yeah, we had a really hard time finding decent food there for us, but maybe we didn't know where to look. I don't know, and people are probably going to be like outraged because we've talked to a few people that have been to Naples and said they've had amazing meals and experiences, and Randy and I just couldn't find it. Maybe we were ignorant. We couldn't get into it, but yeah, their sandwich game though is on point. I've had some of the most soul just wrenching in the best way possible encounters with sandwiches in Italy that I've ever experienced in my life. They're so good.
Now, unlike you guys, my husband and I do not eat out very often, but I love to cook and I love learning different cuisines. So if you could replicate a meal, what would you want to learn to cook? And maybe I'll try to figure it out and I might practice myself.
Ooh, that's good. That's a good one. I would love to learn how to make a curry omu rice from Japan. That would be amazing. And then in
writing it
Seoul,
down.
they're tteokbokki, the rice cakes. So, but it's not rice cakes like we think of it.
Okay.
You look it up and you'll kind of see I don't even know how to describe it. They're like spongy rice cakes, like a noodle, but not a noodle. And then you put cheese in there and it's spicy. It burns your face off, but in the best way possible, mixed with cheese and cheesy tteokbokki. Oh, and it's spelled really weird. I think it's like Tteobokki is one of the spellings of it. And then the other Korean dish that I'm obsessed with is jjajangmyeon, which is the black bean noodle. Oh
yeah.
I would love to learn how to make that. It is so not good for you and so delicious.
And why is it not, like, what's in it that's you just look at it and go, this is not going to be good?
There's a significant amount of sodium.
Okay.
And it's pretty high in fat as well. But I mean, honestly, I would rather eat that than I can usually solo a medium pizza without thinking about it. So I'd rather eat a decent bowl of jjajangmyeon than a medium pizza, and pizza is one of my go-tos. So that's saying something. That is like the largest compliment I could give.
That's awesome. I will check out all three of those and we'll see
Yes.
what I can learn. I'll try to play around. I'll make a trip to World Market soon.
Watch a video of a curry omu rice, because I didn't really get to talk about that one and give it justice. The way that they slice the omelet over the eggs, I don't know how they do it. I don't understand. It's
all right.
so
I'll watch some stuff. I'll report back for sure.
It is bizarre how good it is.
So where you guys, I know you're not traveling again until next year, but where's the next tour? Are you allowed to give that information out yet?
Oh, yeah, totally. We've got a few ideas in mind. We know for sure we're going to be back in the UK next summer. This time we're probably going to be in the south part of the UK as much as possible, because we spent a lot of our time kind of in the north. So we're going to try and do like kind of the south of the UK and then get into northern part of Wales. So I know it's kind of two opposite things, but we didn't get to the north part of Wales, and then all of kind of the south part of all of the UK. And then we know we want to do Scandinavia. And then at some point, not sure if it's going to be next year, because it's already kind of seeming like our schedule next year is going to be pretty filled in. We would like to do an east to west or west to east Canada road trip. And then I know that Spain and Portugal are still on our list, and we would like to get to Brazil as well. So there's a lot of countries still upcoming, and then South Africa too. We would really like to get to South Africa. A lot of folks in Cape Town watch our videos.
That's awesome.
We would like to get there, so that'd be pretty cool.
And you mentioned that some restaurants already have these food challenges and you go in and do them, and some make them for you. So when you're prepping to go do something, whether that is locally or even just in the States or away, do you guys reach out to the restaurant and say, hey, we'd love to come and do some kind of partner project? Is that how that works? Or do they reach out to you guys?
In a way. So sometimes they reach out to us, and other times, when we did our last big tour, we actually had a guy help us do that and reach out to restaurants for us on our behalf. And so that kind of helps with reaching out and kind of putting our names out there. And so a lot of the times they'd be like, oh, we've heard of you guys. Yeah, absolutely. Come on in. We'll make you guys a food challenge. So we would do that. In foreign countries, it's a little bit more challenging, sometimes just because there's a language barrier. But other times then we'll just reach out to like local friends that we might happen to have in the area, or local YouTubers. So this part hasn't really come up on my YouTube channel quite yet, but like when we got to South Korea, for example, we couldn't speak Korean, obviously, and a lot of these restaurants only speak Korean and not much English. And so I reached out to a YouTuber that I had found that had done a few food challenges and asked him, and he was bilingual. And so he kind of helped us set up a couple challenges in South Korea. So like just kind of networking like that can sometimes be really helpful, because you don't know if you don't ask. So just kind of trying to be as friendly and open to asking people as possible, and then just being understanding when restaurants just aren't interested, because number one, they probably haven't heard of us, and number two, sometimes they're not really into the food challenge idea. Because some restaurants think it kind of makes them look lower class if they offer a food challenge. So it's kind of just depends on what their mindset on challenges are. Which is understandable, because we don't always eat super clean.
One of the last questions that I have, because I do know that we're coming up on time and your time is important. When it comes to the challenges at the beginning, you always say like what's involved. And you're like, if you fail this challenge, you have to pay $100 or whatever. And just for full transparency, do they generally make you guys pay for that, or do you guys
oftentimes no? Oftentimes no. So sometimes they'll still expect, like if we lose, we'll pay. But oftentimes they'll be like, oh, thank you so much for coming in and filming, and thank you for bringing in a big crowd. They bought a ton of food and drinks, so thank you. And so it just depends, and it's not a big deal really either way. Yeah, I'd say there's no hard feelings either way, but yeah, oftentimes they're very nice, and they're just like, hey, don't worry about it. Thank you for bringing in so many people and for filming a video here. I think it's going to do great. So yeah, we're really lucky in that way, and it's really cool to highlight those restaurants either way. I mean, it's amazing, and oftentimes if they don't charge us, usually the staff gets a generous tip, so that's always helpful.
Now, going that we have 2 months freaking left of this year, which I cannot believe, what does the rest of 2023 look like for you?
I am dieting pretty hard right now. I'm actually really, really excited. I am about to be working with Renaissance Periodization on a YouTube video.
Mhm.
And they're a rather large fitness company, but I used them for coaching years and years ago. And I'm really, really jazzed for their success because back then they weren't a big company. They were mostly known in CrossFit circles, I think. They were a pretty small company.
Mhm.
And yeah, now they're doing really great. And so I'm excited. I'm going to be working on the Renaissance Periodization channel for a video upcoming. So very excited for that. So dieting very hard to be on that video. And then doing a food challenge with Dr. Mike of RP Strength as well. So that should be a lot of fun. So got that coming up, going to continue to diet and then just enjoy the holidays. And then Randy is, of course, continuing his studies for his master's degree in nutrition. So got a lot coming up for the rest of the year.
That's awesome. And when is Randy going to be done?
He should be done next spring. So he'll be
Okay.
on his last semester after the new year. So that'll be pretty amazing. So yeah, the rest of this year is just work. I'm still editing videos from the tour. I think I still have like 15 or 16 to go. That'll take us
Wow.
into spring of next year as well. So that's kind of the cool part of overloading on food challenges. Yes, you gain a little bit of weight, but then there's plenty of time in the off season to edit, lose the weight, and get that all taken care of. So been doing that. Just started a new Twitch channel. I was like trying to figure out a way to spend the evenings when I'm totally exhausted and don't want to edit anymore. And I was like, why don't I try a Twitch channel? So I've been dabbling in that. That's been a good time. But yeah, otherwise just the usual, just eating good, working out really hard, editing.
That's awesome. What would you have told 22-year-old Katina nowadays of where you, I'm sure you did not picture that this is what you'd be doing.
Yeah, no, not at all. What would I have told? That's a good question. That's deep. Ooh, I would have said, eat the chicken nuggets, girl.
Life is short. Eat the
I
nuggets.
ate the nuggets. No, I've been in diet mode for a very long time, and I probably would have just been a little easier on myself and just said strength train really hard, get strong like bull, and then and then go for the aesthetics parts after. So feel really good first, and then worry about aesthetics secondary because it's the how you feel comes first, obviously. Not that chicken
Exactly.
nuggets were going to make me feel any better, but you get where I'm going with that. Like
I absolutely do.
mentally chill out
Yeah.
a little bit. Yeah.
Do you feel like, I mean, to put it bluntly, like crap when you're doing two challenges or more during like a week period?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, you feel pretty bad. So the next day you usually feel pretty bad. And then I generally bounce back relatively quickly. I usually feel better. So like it'll be like say the challenge is on a Monday night. By Wednesday morning, I feel great.
Mhm.
Tuesday, like morning, I'll feel okay enough to eat breakfast. Usually I'm actually kind of hungry the next day, which is really weird. And I'll be like ready for breakfast.
Mhm.
But still feeling like lethargic and you just
That hangover
it's not a
feeling.
good night's sleep.
Right.
It's never a good night's sleep because I'm not oftentimes, but sometimes you'll get like acid reflux, which is no fun, or because you're pounding so much water, you're up all night using the restroom. Like it's not good night's sleeps or anything. So yeah, you just never really feel that great the next day. And sodium's never fun either when your rings are stuck on your hand and stuff. You're like, I can't get it off.
Oh man. Well, Katina, thank you so much for hanging out with me today. Where can people watch you, connect with you, find out more about you?
Yeah, thank you, Kendall. I appreciate you having me on as well. You can find me as Katina Eats Kilos all across the internet. That's my website, katinaeatskilos.com. I'm on Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, TikTok, Snapchat. So I mean, you type in Katina Eats Kilos, you'll find me. And now Twitch. I need to plug Twitch now. So there you'll find me there.
Awesome. I am not on Twitch yet, but eventually I'm sure I'll make the
It's
jump
kind
over
of
there.
fun. I didn't
Is
think I
it?
would like it. Yeah, I was like kind of
I'm getting
trigger
too
shy.
old. I'm like, one more thing.
That's that's kind of what I thought, but it's pretty fun. I didn't think I would like it either, but now that I'm like on it, I'm actually clicking the Twitch button before I click on YouTube,
Oh,
which I shouldn't be
really?
saying because YouTube is my bread and butter, but I kind of like it. I don't know. It's there's something very wholesome about watching unedited content. It's just live. There's
Oh.
mistakes, there's it's very yeah, natural, I guess. It's very homespun, I guess. So it's pretty cool.
It's what Instagram started out as.
Yes. I think about that often. Yeah. Now Instagram is basically just TikTok. So
Exactly. All right. Well, I will check it out. Thank you so much for hanging out with me today. I really appreciate it.
yeah, thank you very much, Kendall. I appreciate it.